Thanks, Rita. Tonight on BBC London, the new helpline, which the Met says will put victims at the heart of policing. But does it go far enough?
It will definitely improve the Met response to victims, but it won't change the overall experience that a victim has when they come into our very broken justice system.
Also on the programme, how businesses around Euston Station say they won't survive because of delays to HS2. Plus, preparing for the doctors' strike next week, thousands of appointments are cancelled, and preparing to play for the King, the harpist who will be performing at the coronation. Good evening and welcome to the programme. I'm Bhandhukravi. We will put victims at the heart of everything we do. The words today of the Met Police Commissioner, Sir Mark Rowley, as a new helpline was launched to support victims of crime. Both the Met and the Mayor are working to rebuild trust in the police in the capital. But as one victim told our reporter Frankie McCamley, much more needs to be done.
I want to see action on the back of my experience and to see the VR process working better for victims. Thank you.
Jade is one of many victims today, sharing her story of being let down by the justice system.
It takes its toll. It's earth-shattering and a constant battle, and it's draining. Even reflecting now.
She was raped 5 years ago.
Lo and behold, my case was dropped, but it's still just, it's challenges at every point, and it takes everything from you. And you should be able to rely on these professionals and experts in their field, but I felt like a lot of the time I wasn't being listened, I wasn't being heard, and I didn't feel understood or valued really going through that process.
It's a familiar story at the Victims' Summit, where £3 million in funding has been announced by the Mayor to help change the way the Metropolitan Police deals with victims of crime.
We deal with millions of calls a year, to thousands and thousands of cases. We do get most of them right, but when you get one wrong, the ripples are awful, both for the individual and their family and friends and people that they tell. Today is about a step on that journey to improve.
An improvement that's being cautiously welcomed.
It's not enough to give victims what they need throughout the criminal justice system. It will definitely improve the Met response to victims, which we know is not at the standard it should be. But it won't change the overall experience that a victim has when they come into our very broken, fragmented and difficult justice system.
The purpose of today's event is to bring together families and victims who are calling for change with those who can actually make those changes. But the problems the justice system faces are so deep-rooted and complex, it's not going to be an easy fix.
Nor will rebuilding the trust in those who have already been let down.
We're hearing today that £3 million is being invested into helping victims. God forbid anything happened again. Knowing this, would you go to the Met and report another crime?
No, I don't think I would be able to report again. I'd like to think that I could, but I wouldn't feel confident in the case outcome. I wouldn't feel confident in how the police would interact with me and how they would essentially kind of like guide me through that process.
Frankie McCamley, BBC London.
A woman and 2 boys have been found dead at a property in southeast London. Police were called to Mayfield Road in Belvedere yesterday morning. Our reporter Harry Lowe has spent the afternoon in the area.
Police and paramedics were called to this semi-detached house in Belvedere just before noon yesterday, and when they arrived they discovered 3 bodies, which we now know was that of a mother and her 2 sons. Nadja Jager, 47, and her sons Alexander, 9, and 7-year-old Maximus were inside. Crucially, police say that they are not looking for anybody else in relation to this investigation. We've heard from Detective Inspector Ollie Stride, who says this is a deeply sad case and we are continuing to establish the circumstances that led to this tragic incident. I would like to thank the local community for their cooperation while our officers go about their inquiries. Our thoughts today are very much with the family as they struggle to come to terms with their loss. This has been the reaction from people in the local area.
Really can't believe that something like this has happened on your own doorstep. You do hear about it, obviously, in the city and further up the country, but not at close proximity like this.
I can't really believe, I'm not sure what's the reason behind, but because I'm mom myself, I can't imagine, to be honest, this sad event happening.
The family are being supported by specialist officers and a post-mortem is due to take place in the coming days.
Harry Lowe reporting there. A punch in the guts for the local community. That's the reaction from some businesses close to Euston Station following the announcement that HS2 might not reach Euston for another 17 years. The government's confirmed that work to design and build the new station is being delayed to save money. So more uncertainty for the people in Camden who've already been disrupted by building work for years. Our transport correspondent Tom Edwards reports.
This is what HS2 looks like in Euston. Hundreds of homes and businesses have been destroyed, and the plan is now to delay the project by anything from 4 to 10 years. For the businesses on Drummond Street, it means more uncertainty and disruption.
10 years, I don't think that we're going to survive. We're not going to survive. How are we going to survive when there is no help from anywhere else?
Travelling to Drummond Street and around this area is just nightmare. So it's going to be a nightmare for the businesses.
I personally think the government should finish this sooner rather than later, so the Euston comes back to normality.
There we go again, 8 o'clock in the morning.
This is the type of thing some residents have had to put up with. Construction has also meant congestion on local roads. Initially, now the line will run to a new Old Oak Common station in West London. Passengers will then have to change onto the Elizabeth line to get into the centre of town. It's not clear yet what the timescale will be for the opening of HS2 here at Euston. It could be 2040, that's 17 years away. And there are also problems with having Old Oak Common in northwest London as the terminus. TfL say that could have very serious implications for the Elizabeth line, i.e. it wouldn't be able to cope. A more affordable design for Euston Station will now be worked on, but the whole area is meant to be seeing huge regeneration.
Well, I think it's an absolute disaster for the community here. It's like a punch in the gut. People woke up this morning reading the news and simply don't know what it means from here. There's no going back for people in Euston. HS2 is here. Homes have been demolished, schools have been emptied, green space has been taken away. This is a giant building site in the centre of London, dividing communities. We need a plan urgently about moving forward, and a delay of a year, 5 years, 10 years is just not acceptable.
Euston now may not have a station for decades. You've got homes there that have been demolished, businesses have been demolished. On many days there's traffic chaos because of high speed too. There are environmental issues around there, economic issues. We're now being told that the only terminal in London will be Old Oak Common in the west of London for many years. That can't be right. The government's got to sort it out.
The government says it's delaying the station to save money, but it is committed to bringing the line into central London. But here in Euston, there's just frustration and disbelief. Tom Edwards, BBC London.
Lots more to come, including the inspirational Londoner who's made his name in American football. Next, it's likely to be the biggest walkout so far affecting the NHS. From Monday morning, junior doctors will take part in a 3-day strike in a dispute over pay. It's predicted that in London alone, tens of thousands of operations and planned appointments will be cancelled. Our correspondent Carl Mercer reports.
This is what a normal day looks like in the emergency department at Chelsea and Westminster Hospital. But it won't look like this for 3 days next week.
I'm going to head now.
Yeah.
I've just shown that.
Because junior doctors won't be here from Monday, this department, like pretty much every other in the capital, will be running with around half the staff. Much planning has been done. Staff from across the hospital will be drafted in to help here, but it will still be a huge challenge.
How confident I am? In fact, I'm very worried and concerned because we have got 50% of what we would normally have to manage a department of this size, and that itself is a huge risk. So if you see if I'm confident, probably not, but what I'm confident is that we are putting enough effort to plan for it, and that's the key part over here. The planning is the absolute essential bit.
London's NHS has of course already seen a series of strikes by nurses. They're now in negotiations with the government, but the junior doctors' dispute could hit harder.
I'm expecting it to be very busy. The department is busy at the best of times, and as Dr. Patel has mentioned, we're probably going to have 50% of the staffing we would normally have. So despite efforts to provide excellent, as best care as possible for severely ill and critically ill patients, sadly there will be a longer wait for the patients who aren't perhaps as acutely unwell.
NHS bosses are urging patients to keep using emergency departments if they are really unwell, but asking them to use GPs, pharmacies and NHS 111 if they're not.
There will be significant disruption, and we need to do everything we can, both as as people in leadership positions, but other professionals, other doctors that aren't junior doctors, and nurses and physios and radiographers, etc. We all need to pull together to keep patients as safe as possible.
It will be a difficult few days ahead. Thousands of planned operations have already been cancelled, thousands of appointments too. As yet, no talks are planned to avoid further action.
All disputes like this are eventually solved by dialogue and compromise, and I would urge both sides to come together as soon as possible and through dialogue to come to a compromise which is the best thing for staff and the best thing for patients.
That may be for the future. For now, the focus will be on London's emergency departments. Carl Mercer, BBC London.
A look at some of the day's other news now. A teenager who stabbed an 18-year-old Afghan refugee to death in a southwest London park has been sentenced to 10 years in prison. A jury at the Old Bailey found him not guilty of murder but guilty of the lesser charge of manslaughter. Hazrat Wali was attacked in Twickenham in October 2021. The roof of a block of flats in South London has been ripped off during windy weather. London Fire Brigade was called to Tulse Hill after the aluminium roof of the three-storey building was left in a precarious position. There were no reports of any injuries. Lambeth Council says it's supporting residents with temporary accommodation. And young homeowners are the most likely to be financially stretched because of higher mortgage rates, according to the Financial Conduct Authority. The watchdog is warning that those living in London, where house prices are higher than the UK average, are likely to be under particular financial pressure. Now, there was a protest outside a pub in southeast London today against so-called drag storytelling for children. Only the event turned out to be non-existent because the pub's website was out of date. To add to the confusion, a pro-LGBT+ counter-protest formed to oppose the initial protest. There were noisy and impassioned exchanges on both sides, as Wendy Hurrell explains.
Either side of the police line, radically opposing views on the streets in East Dulwich.
This is a protest that was called by Turning Point UK, opposing apparently a drag storytelling event at the Great Exhibition pub here behind me. The pub has said that no such event was planned for today. They did do one in July last year, which was very popular and successful with the local people. I asked someone from Turning Point UK if they would speak to me. They have declined.
They did eventually send us a statement in which it said, "Our protests are focused on awareness, not actually physically preventing adult performers from reading to children, as that is for the government to legislate or for the police to act when necessary." Speakers included actor and political activist Lawrence Fox, with Turning Point UK saying drag performances are inappropriate for children and they will be announcing more protests. The theatre company that puts on these shows said drag performance has been part of our heritage since the 1500s, and just like all performance, there are within the genre different types of content that's created for different age groups. And they point towards the safeguarding policy on their website. Counter-protesters, Stand Up to Racism, said they were here to oppose the far right.
I think that they genuinely want to cause division. I don't think that they welcome the counter-protest at all. I think they would love to have an open field where they can perpetrate their ideas. And the fact that the community has come out so strongly against them, I think is a victory for us and a victory for the community.
Some of those locals were engaged, others bemused.
My children grow up here. We live next to the pub. It's a lovely family-friendly pub. Very pro-community. All this demonstration created by people that don't even live here.
And then there was this guy who just wanted everyone to go home so his kids could nap. This was the second such protest in a fortnight at pubs in southeast London, both a melee of the most fervently held views normally aired on social media, in physical form on the street. Wendy Hurrell, BBC London.
And there's more analysis on all things politics right here this weekend.
Hi, I'm Samantha Simmons. Coming up on this week's Politics London, we take a look at the issue of the handful of unregistered ultra-Orthodox Jewish schools in Stamford Hill, where there are concerns a small proportion of boys leave unable to read or write in English. So do join me and all of my guests Sunday, 10 a.m. on BBC One.
A Watford football player has been praised for raising awareness of stammering after a video of his post-match interview went viral. Ken Sema spoke to journalists after the game and received an overwhelming response for being open about the condition. Tim Muffet went to meet him.
Ken, lovely to meet you. I wanted to first ask you about this interview you gave last month. You'd scored 2 goals, you played against West Brom, and the interview you gave had an enormous reaction.
I'm happy with the goals. I'm happy with the win today as well. It wasn't a must win here at home.
Were you surprised by the reaction?
Actually, yeah, I was. I didn't think like this. You know, obviously I had a good game. It was amazing because there was so much love, so much like real reactions, and I heard I've helped so many kids and adults who maybe also has a stammer.
Have you always had a stammer?
So maybe started when I was six years old, but I didn't knew how it came. You know, I didn't know anything. It just come. I just felt like it's normal. It's like a part of me.
Here's Sema, who's very strong, bringing that forward.
I always had this dream to become a footballer.
Terrific trick there as well.
And I didn't see this as an issue.
There have been quite a few famous people who have stammers. Joe Biden, for example, the US president, he's spoken about his.
This isn't about, there's a reason why he's bringing up all this malarkey. I learned so much from having to deal with stuttering. It gave me insight into other people's pain.
How important is it, do you think, that people such as yourself talk about it and are open about it?
No, I think it is actually. It is because if I told myself, also like as a young kid, like 10 years old at TV, I watch like, oh, he's a footballer, has a stammer. I would feel like, wow, amazing, because he's like me, you know. If he can do it, I can do it.
Sema.
And you've become a role model for many people because of that interview.
I didn't expect that really, but I'm happy about it. Thankful about every comment, thankful about everything, and if I can help, I'm here to help.
Ken Sema there. Now, it was as a young man in South London that F.A. Obada tried on an American football helmet and pads for the first time. He's gone out to carve out a successful career in the US and is now the longest-serving British player in the NFL. It's a remarkable story, given the hardships he endured after being trafficked to the UK as a boy. Chris Slegg has the story.
Under pressure, and down he goes. And Obada with the sack for Washington.
F.A. Obada doing his thing in the US. But on a recent trip back to the UK, he made it clear he hasn't forgotten his roots.
London is definitely still home for me, 100%, yes. I went through the traditional school system and working a normal job, and then in the NFL, I'm some NFL player. I'm an NFL player, you know. I'm a star, so yeah, it's definitely different.
Born in Wari, Nigeria, at the age of around 5, he left with his sister and went to the Netherlands. There, he remembers meeting his mother for the first time. At 10, he and his sister were trafficked to London and abandoned. They were looked after by a security guard until social services took them in. They were moved from home to home. He says those hardships prepared him for life in elite sport.
In terms of growing in foster care, just the instability and just uncertainty of where, you know, just not having a place to call home, I feel like it translates in terms of being in the NFL. Just the fact that there's just this level of uncertainty. You can be on one team with this moment, you can be on another team, you know, living out of a suitcase. You know, that's something I still do right now.
The average NFL career lasts just over 3 years. That Obada has already been playing for 7 is quite something, says one of Britain's NFL pioneers.
The fact that somebody who's come from his background, come from the places that he came from, not played the game for an extended period of time, has been in the NFL for double the league average, is a testament to this guy's character, is a testament to his athletic ability, is a testament to his will, his spirit, and he's going to keep on playing for quite a few more years, we expect.
While Obada considers himself British, he's not been able to obtain a passport.
I was in foster care, and you know, when I was a minor, they were supposed to sort it out for me and sort out my immigration and my papers, but I did fall through the cracks. They didn't sort it out. I aged out, you know, rules changed, and unfortunately I wasn't able to get it. I'm still fighting to get it, and although I do feel British, I still feel like it's a country that just kind of doesn't, you know, accept me.
Through the sport that was his salvation, Obada wants to provide opportunities for other young Londoners.
One of my dreams is to have my own facility, my own training facility where people can come and watch kids can come and just have that place, that safe haven. When I was growing up, I used to go to like youth centers, you know, and I used to, you know, that's where I used to do my homework. That's where I made friends. That's where I used to just kind of, you know, just play games because, you know, it was just this safe place and this sense of community.
Against all odds, F.A. Obada made it to the top. Chris Slegg, BBC London.
Amazing. And you can watch more of F.A. Obada's story in a special programme, F.A. Obada Against All Odds, which is available on the BBC iPlayer now. Now, it's often said that music is a form of therapy, and this week patients at a hospice in Kent were given a royal musical treat. Alice Hughes, the official royal harpist who will play at the King's coronation at Westminster Abbey, performed at Eleanor Hospice, and Chrissy Reedy was there.
As the official royal harpist, Alice Hughes is well used to an audience. And now the 27-year-old has brought the power of music to Gravesend, where she performed for Eleanor Hospice as part of a musical therapy session.
Whenever I've got a little bit of free time in my schedule, I like to make time to come and play for people in the community and, like you said, bring music to the people who need it and the people who really can benefit from it the most, rather than rely on them to come and find you in a concert hall, because realistically that's not going to happen.
Alice was appointed the royal harpist to the then Prince of Wales in 2019. And this year has a very special appointment in her diary.
I'm really excited to be playing a small part in the coronation, in His Majesty's coronation in May, which, yeah, again, I'm really, really privileged and honoured to have been asked to play. I'm just glad I can finally tell people that I'm involved now.
Alice has been playing the harp since she was 10 years old and has gone on to perform at countless royal engagements.
Actually, the harp is quite a tough instrument. It's very physical on our hands, on our fingers, and we use our feet as well as it just being a cumbersome thing to move around.
I thought it was very nice. It's a lovely instrument, the harp. I've always liked it.
She played it so beautifully, and yeah, it brought back some beautiful memories for me.
It's about exposing people to the emotions behind music and how that can make you feel inside. I think with music, you hear a tune and it can take you back to that moment in your life. And when you listen to music like Alice played, that the room felt silent and just people were just there to just be.
It's clear everyone at this musical therapy session was captivated by her performance, just as her audience will be at the King's coronation in May. Chrissy Reedy, BBC London, Gravesend.
And that's easing us nicely into the weather with Alina Jenkins. And some people had a little bit of snow in our area, didn't they?
Yeah, I had to look for it, but there were some areas. This was Hitchin in Hertfordshire this morning, so a dusting of snow, which quickly then cleared away. But for others looking out for the snow, well, it was a fairly soggy start around about the same time. This was Tower Bridge, but thankfully that system has been clearing away eastwards through the day to leave many of us with some sunshine around. But what that means overnight is that, of course, we've got clear skies, and that will eventually lead to an ice risk. We have a yellow warning from the Met Office for ice, some slippery surfaces, temperatures quite widely falling below zero, -4 or -5 away from the capital. So as we head into tomorrow, it's a cold, frosty and in places icy start. There'll be some spells of sunshine, but what you'll notice down to the southwest is that cloud will be gradually gathering and building and working its way north and eastwards through the day. Most will stay dry for much of daylight hours, but you could start to see some rain arriving in from the southeast towards the end of the day. Lighter winds than what we've seen today. Temperatures still no great shakes, 6 or 7 Celsius. And then this is all attached to a frontal system, which will start to then push its way north and east through the evening and overnight. The heaviest of the rain to the north of the centre of London, further south perhaps mainly dry, but we'll start to see some milder air nudging in on this, and as we get rid of one front there's another one waiting in the wings. But it looks like for much of Sunday it should be mainly dry for us, and actually through Sunday morning we should see some spells of sunshine. What we'll notice is that the winds will be strengthening, coming from the southwest, so a much milder direction. Some good spells of sunshine through the morning before that cloud starts to build, and later in the day we could start to see some rain, but much of Sunday dry and also much milder, and we'll keep that milder theme as we head into Monday. But yes, once again we've got another Atlantic front pushing its way across. Notice the isobars are quite close together, so once again it's going to be fairly wet and windy. So the good news is that we are starting to lose some of the colder conditions for a time, although it will be wet and windy, and it looks like it will be quite cold again on Tuesday. Alice, back to you.
OK, thanks Alina. Well, that's it. Plenty more on our website, of course. I'll be back in the late news. Bye-bye.
Confused? You're not the only one. Find the best money-saving products since sliced bread with me, Greg Foot. Get personal finance guidance from Paul Lewis on Moneybox, and understand the economy with Felicity Hannah. For clarity, help or advice, listen on BBC Sounds.
OK, let's get down to business.
BBC iPlayer. Love what you find. Find what you love. Binge watch brilliant shows. From the latest to the greatest.
I know, and I loves it. You know I does.
Live stream BBC TV.
Welcome to my big show!